Hello, welcome to Brimwood Farm and to Monday Magic, my weekly video finding some positivity from Mother Nature. And this week I'm going to talk about the wonderful thing of making your own plants for free at home, and in particular how to take some rose cuttings. So if you saw the video a couple of weeks ago, you'll know that I'm a bit iffy about roses, but they are starting to grow on me. And there's one particular white rose that I want to propagate, both to add more plants to the garden, but also to plant up at the farm. So I'm going to propagate it today. We're going to do some semi-ripe and hardwood cuttings. So let's go and find it. Now the rose in question is this one here. Now sadly the last blooms have blown off in the wind today, but it develops these wonderful hips. I don't know the exact variety because it was a budget shop bargain at £1, and it was tiny when I bought it. It was sort of right down here, and it's come up and it's had both these lovely florets of white flowers. That's particularly why I like it. They're single petaled, they're white, and it means that they not only look lovely and they've flowered a ton, but the single petal roses mean that the bugs can get in and pollinate. All these multi-flowered ones aren't that great for wildlife. So we've got a couple of flowers. Now in a perfect world, what you want for a cutting is you want a stem that hasn't got flowers on the top, because obviously the plant is putting all that energy into producing the flowers and then these hips. So you want to find a sappy thing like this, which is a sucker. Now this will eventually create some flowers, but if I cut it off now, I can make it into cuttings. Now, I only have one plant and I only have this one branch that I can take cuttings from. So again, in a perfect world, you would take one cutting from the end of this, and then you would find another one like this and take another cutting, and so and so and so. But I only have this one piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this right back there, and I'm going to make several cuttings from the entire stem. It doesn't always work, especially for the ones lower down, but if you try and you put root padding on and you use the method I show you, you might be able to get several new plants out of one stem, and it works, because otherwise you need a big bush with lots of growing shoots to take them off. But this way you only need one plant and you need one section of stem, and you can multiply your rows quite considerably. Now I am going to cut these hips off in the meantime, because if you look in here, it's creating some new shoots, and these will turn into flowers, but they are too small to take as cuttings at the moment. So I'm going to cut this off, I'm going to take it back into the kitchen, and then we'll get on with some propagation. So we're back in the house, mostly just to get away from the noise of those blooming roosters. So here is our cutting. Now, what I want to do is I want to take cuttings of several inches long. So I'll probably get 3 from this. This is your growing tip, and this is the cutting that's most likely to take, because it's already generating this new growth, and it's a bit sappy and there's lots of moisture and nutrients going through it. So it's most likely to root. But there's also a chance that these lower ones will as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3. So the first one will be taken down to here. The second one will be here, and then the bottom one will be this section here. So just take your pair of secateurs, and you want to snip above a leaf node. So is that long enough? Yeah, we're going to do this one here, and we're going to do this one here. And I find that works for a number of reasons. Firstly, if you snip above a leaf node, it prevents dieback from here, because this will not grow. This section will not grow. Buds will come out from here, so this would die back. So you don't want to cut it, for example, below a thing, because then you leave all this stalk. The second thing is, as I just said, the buds will come out from this section. And when you're making multiple cuttings from a single stem, you want these buds to be rooting, and you want to end up with the bottom piece as well. So I've got 3 lovely pieces of rose. You want to then take off your leaves, and you want to leave probably 2 at the most, because you've got to remember this, although I've cut this off the main plant, it's still living. there's still sap in here, it's still transpiring, and so if you leave too many leaves on, it's going to lose humidity really quickly because it's still breathing, it's still transpiring. So it will just lose too much moisture, and then it will die, and then it won't have a chance to make the roots. So take as many leaves off as you can. If on big plants, you can also chop off, I'll just show you on this one, you can chop off the ends of the leaves. And also this makes it a bit easier when you put it in the mini propagator later, because these won't then press up against the sides where they can collect moisture and it can become a bit mouldy, and then you can lose cuttings. So let's get one. I'm going to do it on this one as well. Two. And then this is our final step. Now it has curled a bit, but you need a big enough piece of twig so that when you put it into the potting compost, it can stick up. Now I'm going to take these off. So this one has just got that little growing tip at the top. I'm also going to take this off because it's got a little bit of mildew on it, and I don't want that to be in the propagator when I'm growing it and trying to get it to root. So we've ended up with these 3 little cuttings. Now, roses are not as easy as, say, lavender or geraniums or pelargoniums, which you can basically just cut off, stick into some compost, and they'll root. You need to do a little bit more with a rose to make sure it takes, and you also need to leave it quite a bit longer as well. So the first thing you need is some rooting powder. Now this was cheap. You don't have to go and buy expensive rooting powder. It was only $1.99, so that's about $3.50. So it's not expensive stuff, and it lasts for ages. So it's well worth getting it. And then with roses, what you want to do is you want to cause a bit of a wound at the bottom of the stem, and that will encourage that you can put the rooting powder around there, and that will encourage the roots to form. So again, if you just take your succotaurs and you want to just scrape off some of the outer. So now you can see I've made this wound. I might just make it a little bit bigger. And as the plant tries to heal itself, and because we're going to put the rooting powder on, that rooting powder encouraged this plant, instead of only making bark and healing this wound, to actually put out roots as well. So then we want to get our rooting powder, dip our little thing in, get loads on, and then just shake it off so you haven't got any excess. There, easy peasy. Take your dibber or a stick or a finger or whatever you can find. Put it around the edge, pop it in about halfway down, and just push the soil gently around there. So let's do the other 2. Again, this is the most likely one to take. Scrape off and make a little wound. Dip it in. And dipper. Now I'm going to put this facing inwards because otherwise it will press against the plastic bag. And then the final one. Now the final one is a little bit different because this is really hard because this was at the base of the stem, so this is a really hard cutting. Now you can see here it has actually started to form buds. So where it is on the plant already, you can see that it started to form a couple of buds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut up just underneath one of these buds. Probably at this, there's a tiny bud here, probably just there. And I'm going to do it at a 45 angle. And then I'm going to again wound it. And the reason you cut at a 45 angle, or at least a slight angle, is the same reason as you do with cut flowers. It's so that they can take up as much moisture as possible to keep the plant alive while you're trying to get it to root. There we go. So that is our three our three cuttings popped into their little pot. This is just a basic compost. It's nothing special. It's a peat-free multi-purpose compost. Now we've got these cuttings in a pot, you want to make sure you give them the best chance possible. So you often see people putting plastic bags over the top, and that makes a mini greenhouse, and tying it around with a rubber band. Or you can just leave it like this and pop it in your greenhouse, but you have to spray it, you have to keep it moist. So you'll need bottom moisture for the soil, but the leaves also need to be kept moist with a sprayer. I like to use a Ziploc bag. They work really well because all you do, you pop your plant inside, and you can put a little bit of water in the bottom. I've just pulled that out by accident. You can then put a little bit of water in your bottom. You can even write on when you took it. You can see it very visibly, and then you can just zip it closed. And it really is that easy to make brand new rose plants for your garden. But remember, rose cuttings are going to take far longer to take than many other plants. So if you take pelargonium or lavender cuttings in the summer, for example, they might only take 2 weeks to start producing roots, whereas rose cuttings are going to take a lot longer. And because they take longer, you're going to have to look after them and make sure there aren't any problems. And one major problem, especially in these little greenhouses that we create, is mould. If you get mould, take the pot out of the bag, dry the bag off, allow the plant to breathe for a bit, and remove any visible mould spores, both on the leaves, the pot and the soil. If any of the leaves die, take them out because that can harbour diseases. And when taking summer cuttings, you'll often find that actually some of the plants try and flower because you've just cut them off the main plant, and if they're long, sappy little cuttings, they're going to grow into flower buds. So as soon as you see those buds coming, snip them off, because a plant naturally wants to produce flowers, pollinate and reproduce. But we don't want it to do that, we want it to create roots. So snip those buds off if they appear, and it may still take roots. I've had many plants where I've just cut the flowers off, it has produced roots and grown into a very healthy plant. Now it's also quite important and worthwhile understanding that many of the plants, and the roses in particular we buy from nurseries, are grafted. And that means that the visible plants, so the leaves and the flowers above ground, are a different species to the roots. They've been grafted together to make the best possible plant. Now in our gardens, when we've taken these cuttings, we're just going to have the rootstock that these cuttings grow. So they may not be quite as healthy as the ones you buy in a nursery, and you may need to give them a little bit more loving care, so a bit more feed over the years, a bit more pruning, a bit more love. But they will still take, and they will still be fabulous. Now if you've got any questions, please, as always, just ask in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all again soon. Have a wonderful Monday. I've been inspired by making these new plants. What's inspired you? Tell me below. See you soon. Bye.